Hello, my name is Michael Swenson, and today's date is August 29th, 2009. I want to pay my respects to the Kennedys, obviously a man that was greatly loved and has left a good heritage and name behind. I want to dedicate part of my effort in not only trying to save my own life, but mostly trying to save others from extreme incompetence, ignorance, an epidemic crisis of corruption in this country. I am going to elaborate not only on personal details of why I'm having to take this measure to try to save my own life from excruciating, agonizing pain because of what I've been through, and literally to live, but also the fact that during these years of extreme agony and suffering due to the healthcare crisis in this country, and again, incompetence, ignorance, and corruption, not only in healthcare but within our existing government structure, and I have no choice but to take these measures. I'm going to do the best I can be. And I've waited for quite some time trying to put together enough evidence and enough knowledge to persuade even the most skeptical. But the pain and suffering I'm in is so great, it is causing me not to present as competently or as intelligently as I would have when I'm healthy. And I mean, it's affected me on many levels, and so I'm just going to do the best I can. I'm going to touch on topics that will affect absolutely every citizen in this country, and perhaps even citizens around the world. And I know at least 10% of the population directly needs to, be aware of what I'm going to reveal about their own personal medical health. A genetic trait I've found that affects at least 1/10 of the global population, and as far as I can tell, most people are completely oblivious of. But I want to get first to the details of what has happened to me and why I'm having to take this extreme measure of embarrassing myself, basically making a complete spectacle of myself when I'm a very private person, in the eyes of the world, because all other avenues that I've been taught as are remedies for citizens that have suffered brutal crimes as I have failed me, have left no remedy, and has left me in extreme suffering. Daily, I can't think of more pain that a person can be in and still be alive. Now, I know that I'm not alone in suffering. I know there's people that have been burned and people that suffer their whole lives from birth defects and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to say that I suffer alone. But I am trying to say that what I've suffered was done to me maliciously and with intent to kill me. And citizens need to become aware of it, because it was done by, physicians and nurses that are still loose in our society, and I have failed to get arrested no matter how hard I've tried. And mainly because most decent people just choose to automatically believe that, there's no way I could be telling, factual events or truth, even though I have documentation to prove it, and I'm going to do so. That basically there's an epidemic of hospital homicides in this country, and in fact around the world, that illegal organ harvesting is occurring at an epidemic rate for profiteering by very corrupt and greedy persons that call themselves doctors and nurses. Now, I'm not saying that all doctors and nurses are evil. I'm just saying that we have an epidemic in this country of Americans being murdered at the rate of over 1 million citizens per year. And they've been getting away with it so easily because most of the public is completely naive. Most of the public thinks that, the people we trust with our lives would never do these things. You just tell that to the survivors of the Holocaust and World War II. It has always been in history that the people we give the most trust to have been the most heinous criminals on earth, and it is now occurring in this country, and I'm going to show that there is a direct link between the Nazis that were, assimilated into our own government after World War II, and what has occurred in this nation and is now occurring at an epidemic rate and must be addressed immediately to prevent perhaps the worst Holocaust in history from occurring, not somewhere else on planet Earth, but within the so-called illustrious and wonderful, United States of America, founded a Christian nation, but now is turned into something that is dark and sinister and terrorizing for most people. And it couches behind this light of angelic, Christianity of the true believers in its borders. But really, if you examine objectively what our country's now doing, and not only in the world, but in our nation, you'll see that there are truly concerns that I'm going to bring up. Most citizens are completely oblivious of, not because you're ignorant, not because you're unintelligent, but simply because you're working so hard and you're trapped in your own world so much that these things are eluding you and you're missing it. And that's how these criminals have been getting away with slaughtering 1 million Americans every year with people not knowing, is because most of us are so trapped in our own little worlds that we just don't pay attention to public news and events or the lives of others. And when somebody dies, the worst doctors and nurses fear is a claim of a malpractice suit, where they got armies of attorneys defending their hospitals and stuff. And most people are so grieved and stuff, they don't even begin to think that their loved ones were actually murdered. They believe the doctors and nurses who know how to kill people in many ways and make it look like an accident because of their knowledge of human anatomy. At any rate, I basically touched on certain things, but I'm going to touch on things that are incredible for people to believe, and I'm going to submit documentation and proof as best I can, because due to this massive epidemic, not only did I survive one hospital homicide attempt, I survived a second one in which they tried to murder me in order to cover up their first attempt, and then I ended up finding out that doctors and nurses in this region in other hospitals actually are covering up, the fact that this is going on, because every time I would bring up, why I was requesting certain medical treatment due to what was done to me, these other doctors and nurses that I met would systematically work as to discredit me and actually deny me needed medical care and leave me in excruciating pain. And I'm going to prove all this. In other words, doctors and nurses in various hospitals in this region have conspired, and I'm going to prove they've conspired to cover up hospital homicides, attempted homicides, not only on my life, but they are succeeding in doing it to others, and they harvest the organs, and because of the timeliness of organs and needing for transplants, and how many people need transplants these days, and how profitable it is, they call it an accident and sucker people, ignorant people, trusting people, naive people into signing organ donation forms, just prior to, superficial surgeries like what I was going through, in order to basically make sure they have living tissues and organs for the higher paying, patients. I was insured, I was paying, I was not an uninsured or, impoverished citizen at the time. I had resources. I've lost them all now due to what was done to me. And I've lost my insurance, and I've lost my home, and I've lost my truck, I've lost my ability to earn a living for myself. I've been literally fighting to stay alive just to make sure people know that this is going on. No one in the world should have to pay for their own murder. These people are sick. They had the audacity to not only lie about what they did to me, but charge me, destroy my credit, leave me in excruciating pain, knowing what they did to me, and knowing I needed certain medical treatment right away, and have systematically covered up and denied me to be able to get the medical care I needed and still need to this day, just to cover up their crimes. It's not malpractice. This was intentional, and I'm going to prove it. And even if you don't believe, what I say about the proofs I have, I can assure anyone that does competent checking about the proofs I will now show will understand that I am telling objective truth. These people are evil. They're sadistic. They're greedy. I will try to refrain from my emotions. It's difficult when every breath you take is painful, when every moment of your waking life you want to go back to sleep, to just be out of the chronic and severe pain. And I know what pain is. I was almost paralyzed in my back. I've been burned many times, cut many times. I've been shot. I know what pain is. I've been through rehabilitation and therapy for over 4 years straight just so I could walk right. I know what pain is. And what I'm going to tell you now, you may not want to believe, because everyone sooner or later, unfortunately, will end up in a hospital. And then I'm going to address what I believe is the healthcare solution for this country. I hope that you will take your valuable time to listen to everything that I have to say, because I'm going to touch on topics that will actually affect every citizen, as far as I know, on Earth. I'm not just going to touch on what I believe is a competent healthcare solution for all citizens, not just in the United States, but as far as I'm concerned, the whole world. But I'm going to touch on topics that include proving the existence scientifically of God Almighty. And I know a bunch of you are going to laugh about that, think that it's impossible. But I'm pretty sure that if you're a reasonable and rationally minded individual, by the time I'm finished, you're going to be amazed. You're going to realize that there's been intentional brainwashing going on in our public education system, intentional rewriting of our national history, an intentional takeover of this country, and that every true free-born United States citizen needs to become aware of right now, that there are actions being taken by corrupt governing authorities to not only subdue and subvert this nation and the rights provided by the United States Constitution for every citizen, but literally to enslave you completely, to literally brand you like they marked the Holocaust, victims with tats and numbers. You're going to be, and your children are going to be subject to, by force, unless you stand up now, unless you unite now. RFID biochip implants that have already been manufactured, over 1 billion already exist. Already animals have been implanted, and already certain babies, and already certain governing officials, and already certain corporate elites are already implanted with these things. They're not just tracking devices, my friends. These are RFID. It's radio frequency identification, and it's a technology that enables them to upload and download information. In other words, transceiver devices. In other words, they can listen into your every waking moment and even your sleeping moments. You will have somebody that not only will know your location, but if they want to, they can listen into your conversations with your spouse, with your children, including your intimate moments. Do you really want other corrupt individuals in flesh and blood. And do you really think, when there's been an epidemic of scandals, man, of sadomasochistic, governing officials, man, law enforcement, perverts, man, I mean, an epidemic, man, of scandals that most people don't even watch the news because it's so damn sick, I'm not saying that all of our governing officials are corrupt. I'm saying that there exists in our government now, perversions. Do you really want people listening into your intimate moments with you and your spouse? Because right now they've made laws, and I have suffered personally from governing agents breaking into my home, planting listening devices, cameras, and so on and so forth, all because of my stand and attempts to expose that this is going on. And I'm going to do so until it either gets stopped or until I die. I will not give up this fight. You have not, correctly understood the amount of determination that I have. And I'm a rare survivor. Rare. Most people do not live through what I've been through. I'm going to describe details that I know are unbelievable, but I believe I'm going to submit enough circumstantial evidence to warrant, citizens pressing for an honest investigation. And do not believe any more government cover-ups, man. This is serious. Your lives, man, and the lives of your children are in serious jeopardy in the very near future in this country. Y'all are just, going about your day-to-day 9-to-5 jobs and completely oblivious, most of you. You need to listen to this, man. This is serious. This is not some lunatic out there just saying, this is like somebody that, actually escaped, Auschwitz and stuff in the Holocaust of World War II, doing his damnness to point it out that, hey, man, people are being euthanized in this country. People are being murdered in this country at a rate that far exceeds the deaths of any and all wars we've ever had. The way it happens is if the person actually has any relatives that actually care, there's so many broken, dysfunctional families and relationships nowadays that most of the time it's just they're cleaning up, the elderly that are now, too old, to fight them, and, people that maybe have healthy organs that are in there for surgery but don't have strong family ties and don't have, somebody there that would sue their asses, completely, it's all about the money. All about the greed, man. Sicko, man, was just, the tip of the iceberg about the crap going on in this country. And frankly, I'm suffering so bad now, and I've met so many good people in this country that it actually makes it kind of easy for me to risk my own neck, at this point. Maybe that's why God hasn't healed me or manifest the health that Christ purchased for me, is because it's making it a lot easier for me just to, I have no other choice, really. To try to beg, for, I hate to use that word, but I'm pretty much begging now, for any, competent, caring medical practitioners to give me the treatment I've been trying to get all along. I can't believe how many doctors I've gone to, told them I already know what the hell's wrong with me, and they're like, well, we'll determine that. In their arrogance, they won't even listen to you. They have, even though I spent thousands of dollars on tests and stacks of medical records, and I already determined what the hell's wrong with me. I couldn't get treatment, even though I had money, even though I was willing to pay, even though I was insured. I couldn't get treatment because frankly, quacks and coats, man, so damn prideful and arrogant, they think that they can know more about you in 5 minutes than you know in 4 decades of your own life, and let alone thousands of dollars of tests already run. They wouldn't listen to me. They kept telling me to shut up, literally, and some of them would hang on me like monkeys. I'm not kidding. The arrogance and the incompetence in this country by medical practitioners is a stench, man. It's terrible, man. It is inexcusable. I frankly, at this point, don't have any good thing to say about the medical practitioners I've met in the past 5 years, man, of my struggle for my life. They're terrible. They're inexcusably ignorant and incompetent. Now, I recognize that medical practitioners cannot know everything there is to know under the sun. But when a patient tells them they already know what the hell's wrong with them, and that they're wanting to get certain treatment that they need desperately to live, and they've got money, and they're willing to pay, and they still can't get the treatment, that is beyond, man. That's cruel, man. Cruel. If it was them, man, I guarantee they would have been able to, get the treatment they needed. But these friggin' quacks, man, just have to, I'll ask the questions. I will determine the diagnosis, even when you already know the diagnosis. Then they send me to, other quacks after quacks after quacks, calling themselves specialists. Don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't. I'd send them all back to school if I had my druthers. They're idiots as far as I'm concerned. I can't believe they made it out of med school, the people I've met. I can't believe that, complete ignorance. Totally the statements, and you can tell I'm passionate about, my own personal struggle, and it has been a hellish nightmare! Hellish! And I'm going to go into the details of every bit of it. And I know most people will think that, there's just no way this could happen. But it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. I'll take a polygraph. I'm ready to sign, indemnification waivers. Whatever, your arsenal of attorneys can come up with, to waive all liability from any future prosecution, civilly or criminally, if I can just get the medical treatment I'm requesting, for crying out loud. I cannot believe, man, how ignorant, how incompetent, how arrogant, how, completely, unprofessional, man, the people I have encountered in medical practice over the past 5 years are. It's inexcusable. At any rate, all right, enough of my just ranting about how upset I am about, what I've been through. I need to get to the details and get to it quickly. All right. To start out with, and then I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to have to prove, at least to competent, reasonably minded, logical people of the existence of God Almighty, because it's taken God literally to reveal to me, because I myself was so naive and trusting, what really happened to me, all of it, because it was so overwhelming. I couldn't believe it. So I'm not upset with people for not believing me at first. I'm not upset with people, being skeptical in law enforcement. But damn it, when a citizen comes forward risking his life and is alleging, man, attempted homicides, man, it shouldn't be met with animosity. Man, I've been met with threats and antagonism, man. After threats and antagonism, more threats and more antagonism, by going to every single branch of government there is. I'm talking on a local, state, and federal level, and now I am publicly pleading to President Barack Obama to put an end to these incredible atrocities in this country. And before it becomes worse than Nazi Germany. Already more Americans have been murdered in this country than all of the Jews and all of the Christians and all of the homosexuals and all of the other races and all of the other victims of World War II. Already more citizens have been murdered in hospitals in this nation. They get away with it easily. First of all, most people just think whatever the doctors say their cause of death was is true. In other words, they don't even question whatever doctor says, well, his heart just gave out, or her heart just gave out, or they don't even question. They just automatically believe. They don't even they don't even think of an investigation for murder or homicide, even though the person died prematurely. And I'll show you, man, how they get away with it. If anybody cares and comes for the body, right? Who knows? Maybe they cremate the bodies. Who knows? Maybe they're so damn sick they're eating them. You know, frankly, man, nothing would surprise me these days because of how corrupt and how evil, man, and how sinister when you really start to look, when you really get into what's going on in this nation. I know most people don't have the time for it. They're so overworked, and that's part of the plan. You're so overworked, and you're so overburdened, and you're so concerned about money, man, that you can't even begin to think about, you know, the true threats that are arising, you know, and nearly at your own doorsteps. So I'm going to do the best I can to wake people up. And I know most people probably will just go on about their business thinking that this is no big deal and stuff, just another maybe lunatic that, you know, maybe even not a lunatic, maybe a person that really had something horrible and terrible happen, but it's just a very isolated incident. It's what I used to think when people would tell me about heinous things. I've met a few people that have told me about heinous atrocities, and I didn't want to call them a liar, and I didn't want to call them nuts. I just considered that perhaps they were exaggerating maybe a little, or perhaps they were in a very isolated incident. But now I know better. This is not isolated. This is an epidemic problem, and it's got to be addressed. It's got to be addressed right away. Okay, first, to get to the heart of the issue, I'm going to show you, most of you won't even recognize this as evidence. Let me make sure I've got this in frame. Can we see it? Yeah, it's not even showing up very good. Okay, I'm going to do my best to show the evidence here. I want people to note that this is an actual medical record for myself, Michael Swinson. I'm disclosing my own medical records. I'm having to at this point to fight for my own life, to fight to get the medical treatment I've needed now for over 5 years. I mean, most people would already be dead. You know, I'm not exaggerating. I'm suffering. You know, I don't want to beat a dead drum, but I'm suffering horribly, you know, every day, and until I can get the treatment I need. And it's not expensive treatment. It's just what I need. At any rate, this is dated May 30th, 04, and it's how long I've been fighting for my life now. I want people to note, okay, I'm going to increase this lab report. I want them to note a very key factor here. I want people to note right there, my white blood cell count is off the scale. This is the equivalent. For people that don't understand, this indicator here is the equivalent of finding a bullet hole still smoking in somebody's skull and a gun in somebody's hand, of being given an incompatible blood transfusion. This is irrefutable evidence, man. This is incontrovertible evidence that I was given an incompatible blood transfusion at Deaconess Medical Center on 5/30/04. And this was done not accidentally. This was done with intent to kill me. And if you don't believe that statement, if you don't believe that this is absolutely irrefutable evidence that this was done to me, this is something that cannot be argued. If any hematologist, man, says that this is not irrefutable evidence indicating an incompatible blood transfusion, then they are not either a hematologist, or they've been threatened or coerced or bribed to lie. So I used to be a medical lab tech, so I'm telling you, I know for a fact this is as obvious to somebody that knows what this lab report indicates, that I was given an incompatible blood transfusion. And people don't even know what that means, right? Let me tell you, if you get as little as 6 milliliters, we're talking like that much incompatible blood in your body, it can kill you. And if you get, 60 milliliters, just little tiny, not even quite of an ounce of incompatible blood in your body, you can go into acute hemolytic response, which causes your blood to hemolyze, which causes your lungs to fill up with fluid, which causes you to suffocate, which causes you to have a heart attack and die. It's a horrible way to go. It's cruel, man. So they gave me an incompatible blood transfusion, and they did it on purpose. I didn't need any blood. And I specifically wrote on the blood transfusion permission form, because I used to be a medical lab tech, and I didn't want blood products. You know, and that only in an emergency, if I was in imperative danger of dying. All of these are indicators of the incompatible blood transfusion that I was given. For people that understand what a lab report is, you know, for medical professionals, this is irrefutable evidence. I am showing you basically evidence that these people tried to kill me. Okay, if you don't believe that it was done intentionally, say you just believe it was done accidentally, even though this happened to me twice. Say you just believe that this was an accident, that they gave me incompatible blood transfusion, and my body suffered an acute hemolytic response. The rest of the lab report, they lie. They all deny that they even gave me an incompatible blood transfusion, A, and B, then knowing that they gave me an incompatible transfusion, by lying about it, they left me in a life-threatening situation. It almost guarantees death. Anybody that knows what incompatible blood can do to a person and does to a person, this caused me to have 2 heart attacks, caused my lungs to fill up with fluids and to suffocate to death twice, with 3 minutes and 5 minutes of hypoxia, no oxygen to the brain. I mean, I suffered temporal amnesia for 2 years, man. I mean, not even knowing why I was so damn sick, because I couldn't remember the events until finally, after, you know, nutrition and rest, even though I was suffering horribly, got me to a point where I could at least remember the details of what these people did to me. And as soon as I did, I immediately, instead of filing a lawsuit for malpractice, instead of doing, you know, what I should have done, which is sue their asses, because then, you know, if I'd been able to prove it in court with attorneys, then I would have been able to get the law. But instead, I was concerned for people's safety so much so I went immediately to the police about the attempted homicides. They're not intelligent enough to understand that this is like, you know, seeing somebody with a knife still in their chest. You know, I mean, seriously, this is what this is. This right here, this one lab report, the post-op lab report, which is what this is, the discharge summary, do not destroy. It's the post-op lab report of my surgery on May 30th, 2004. And I've had to fight this long to get what should have been done to me right then, is I should have immediately been given compatible transfusion therapy. You know, when they realized that I'd suffered an acute hemolytic reaction, but they lied. And they claimed it was a rare, you know, negative pressure pulmonary edema and stuff brought on by my so-called sleep apnea or whatever. And there's no way these doctors are that friggin' retarded. And I'm telling you that all of these doctors in the medical report, and I can show you in the medical report, they lied. And go from page after page here and show you that they've lied about this. And by lying about this, even if you don't believe that they did it to me intentionally in the first place, it was by lying, it was intentionally to leave me in a state of perpetual aggravated assault and basically with intent to die. Most people will not just recover from this. They will die. They won't just die when they suffer an acute hemolytic reaction like that. If they don't die right then, immediately, which I did twice, you know, like I said, 2 heart attacks, I've survived and come out of it, but I'm in incredible agony, man, every day, because they've covered this up. This is the evidence. I don't need anything else but this. This is, like I said, the equivalent of finding somebody with the gun still in their hand and the bullet hole in the victim. This is solid, irrefutable evidence. You know, I know that just shouting and repeating it and stuff isn't going to convince people. Unless they see somebody on TV with letters after their names, you know, they don't have the, you know, knowledge to just research this themselves on the internet and realize that these indicators and these results, and especially this white this skyrocketing high white blood cell count in response to the blood that didn't belong in my body is irrefutable. This is not a slight allergic reaction. This is an incompatible blood transfusion, evidence, lab report, clear cut, clean cut. I mean, as solid as it gets. Like I said, medical professionals know that most people don't know this stuff. They didn't know I was a medical lab tech in the Army. They don't know I didn't know how to read these things and stuff, and how to research for myself, and how to find out that what I actually suffered was an acute hemolytic response, brought on 2 cardiac arrests, filled my lungs with fluid. This is textbook. But anybody that will research this out will realize that I am telling the truth. These people, if you don't believe they did it to me intentionally, they intentionally lied about it, which is still attempted homicide, to deny me the medical care I needed to recover, when they know that people don't recover from this. They know that this is fundamentally, medically speaking, guaranteed death, and it's why the doctors and nurses that I've met trying to explain that why I was suffering, that this was the truth, didn't believe me, because they know that if they're smart at all, they know that this would kill a person. It's almost guaranteed death. I don't know how to convince the public. And I don't know how to convince you. So I'm just going to tell the truth and hope that you put enough pressure on to get, hematologists that you would respect with credibility, with little letters after their names, so that you can find out that I am telling the truth about this. These people tried to kill me. I've been denied medical care that I need to live by them covering this up, lying about it. And I'll show you that that's exactly what was done. Okay, I hope you're all seeing this. The attending Cruz and Dr. Joy was the anesthesiologist, James Joy. James Joy is a mass murderer. He didn't just try to murder me. The guy was practicing cold-blooded mass murder. I don't know if this was this guy's first or second time or whatever, because my situation also is just plain nasty. But hospital attempted homicides are occurring, and it was what I first, filed the complaints to the police about, because it was the first thing I remembered when I finally got, part of my memory back, after having survived 2 heart attacks and hypoxia for 5 and 3 minutes respectively. Now I know my story, man, it's just like, people can't hardly believe it. But this is documentation. These people did this to me. I'm not lying. I'm not making it up. It's not in my head. And they denied me medical care and left me in excruciating pain. You've heard of, news accounts where somebody gets an organ and their body rejects it. It's called graft versus host rejection. Well, when you get your body filled with blood that doesn't belong into it, and your whole body rejects it, trust me, it's like lupus-like pain. I mean, you probably never hear it from nobody because most people die. I'm probably the only one that's been able to live 5 years, why my body has rejected and is attacking itself with lupus-type agonizing suffering every day. And all because I can't convince, people that I've actually survived this. And it's killing me. It's horrible pain. It's not in my head. It's not like, I'm depressed now and stuff, so depression hurts. That's another one of the brainwashing things, just like they thought bloodletting was the cure-all or the panacea of the Dark Ages. Nowadays, it's like when everybody's suffering and they don't know what's wrong, they just go, it's chronic fatigue or fibromyalgia or depression hurts. It's just the same old quack practices of ignorant people that don't want to admit, that don't know what the hell's wrong with you. Because after all, they wear the frocks and have the letters and they're supposed to know. Rather than just be honest and say they don't have enough medical knowledge, even though they're doctors and nurses, to be able to correctly diagnose you, rather than be honest in their arrogance and pride, they misdiagnose, mistreat, and then leave you suffering off drugs that you shouldn't even have in your body because they didn't know what the hell was wrong with you in the first place. So I've been telling them all along. I've told all of them, man, that this happened to me, and people have disbelieved me, and doctors and nurses, and the reason most of them, if they have enough intelligence, do disbelieve is because they wouldn't consider that I'd be alive. Damn it, I'm telling the truth. And I couldn't get doctors and nurses to look at this, no matter how hard I tried, so I'm showing the world. This is proof. They did give me an incompatible blood transfusion, and I have yet to receive compatible transfusion therapy, which is the standard of practice when somebody is given blood that doesn't belong in their body, to try to immediately give them, as soon as possible, blood that is compatible with their birth type and cell types, their Rh factors included. Damn it. Also the reason why I said, besides the fact that I was a medical lab tech and know all the diseases in blood nowadays and didn't want other people's blood in my body because of that, I also had surgery for a gunshot wound in 1988 at St. Joseph's Hospital in Arizona, where the lab tech told me that she believed I had a genetic trait known as Wilson's disease. And couldn't run all the tests to confirm, but she knew I had hereditary hemochromatosis, and she also knew that I developed antibodies against the Rh factor negative. In other words, I could not receive O negative blood, even though it's thought as a universal donor, or it could kill me, and I could die horribly. And she said even if I survived it, it could, because of the fact that I have this genetic trait that's called Wilson's disease. Again, 10% of the global population has it. It's not rare like people are being told. It's not. It's causing all kinds of serious ailments, man, and terminal ailments. And people are, the pharmaceuticals and the medical industries are making huge profits off of it. People like Michael J. Fox, that's diagnosed with Parkinson's. The guy has Wilson's disease. In fact, about 70 to 80% of the superstars in Hollywood have Wilson's disease. It's not a disease. It's just a genetic trait. I can see it in their eyes. I've studied it now for literally thousands of hours, man. I've got documents. I mean, people wouldn't believe how much reading and research I've done trying to save my own skin, let alone other people. But I've got 300 gigabytes of information. I've taken all kinds of time researching, literally thousands of letters. I signed up for the Wilson's disease, Members International, where they, email one another about all of the suffering they go through. It's serious. And it manifests in many different ways. Anything from arthritis, pancreatitis, diabetes, anything that, people can think of. Cancers, Alzheimer's, all of it. And it's all genetically related. See, what's not commonly known and not even being talked about Wilson's disease is just I know because I was a medical lab tech and I've studied my own blood, and I also know by divine revelation that rouleau formation, which is commonly thought these days as normal because, again, about 10% of the populace actually has this type of blood abnormality. It causes the RBCs to form like these chain formations. I don't even know why I'm trying to explain this. I'm hoping that some honest medical practitioners will take note even if I die. That the blood shows the genetic trait. You don't even have to go into the liver biopsies and so on and so forth. You don't even have to go into the so-called test that they think confirms Wilson's. These people are they're lacking knowledge. The blood shows it. The rouleau formation, the spherocytosis, the accumulated metals, man, in their eyes are visible. I mean, the way they talk, the pausing, the stuttering, the robotic movements, all of these things, the jittering legs, etc., 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 the tremors in old age, the chronic muscle hypertension, the insomnia. I mean, it's so now to me, after studying this for these 5 years, trying to get the medical treatment I need for my own life. It's now I can just look at people microscopically and tell whether or not they have this genetic trait. And I'm telling you, after watching, systematic samples and looking on the internet for thousands of hours, man, literally in research of peoples all over the world, I realize this affects the global population. And I'm telling the truth, It affects at least 10% of the global population. This is not rare. If they're not actually dominant carriers, they're at least recessive. I can see it in their eyes. I can see it in their walk, their mannerisms, their talk. It's like, I don't know, I suppose, it's hard for people to believe that somebody could just look at somebody and know what type of genetic, trait they're dealing with, and just macroscopically. But if you spend as many hours as I have, and it's another thing that doctors, think that they know more than me, when I know if it was their life, they would have spent, as much research as possible too. But they don't think a citizen has the intelligence. My lowest IQ, I'm not boasting, but my lowest IQ ever tested was 128. Most of the time tests between 148 and the high 160s or even low 170s. That, I'm not boasting, but that's like, somewhere between, the top 2% of the whole population in the world and the top, 0.02%. We're talking not many people test that high. So I'm not a stupid person. And I'm not like, I may not have, a ton of letters after my name, but I've spent at least as many hours in research as most people with PhDs or LLDs or MDs. At least as many hours. At least. Diverse knowledge. I'd never liked to specialize in anything. I like to know pretty much about everything, at least enough to be able to communicate with pretty much anybody and everybody about anything. It's just the way I am, So I haven't used all of my studies to concentrate in just one degree, At any rate, so let's go to some other pages here. Where did they deny what they did? Okay, I gotta try and get that seen more easily. Okay, I hope you can read this now. This is the medical lab report from Deaconess Medical Center, located in Spokane, Washington. The attending, surgeon for my septoplasty and tonsillectomy was Michael Cruz. This guy and James Joy participated in an attempted homicide. Also, now I know that it was with conspiracy with my ex for part of the, not only my organs, but part of the life insurance. I'm going to try to show, right here. Blow this up so you can read it more easily. Here is the date and the time, the location, the fact that this is a discharge summary of citizen freeborn in the United States, Michael Swenson. I'm revealing my age, my medical report, opening myself up to public scrutiny because, well, two reasons. I can't say that it's purely altruistic, that it's only because I care about others. I do want to live. I have a lot that I want to do. I have a lot of work unfinished. I've been given a lot of knowledge from God to help people in these last days. I'll get to that later. First I have to prove to most people, because they've been so damn brainwashed in our country through public education, that they actually think they came from monkeys instead of God. So I have to address that whole issue, in order to get people to realize that God still talks to people, still teaches people, and still shows people things that are going on all over the world and in His creation, including revealing crimes the people that are extra heinous and extra sneaky. It takes God to, bring up short. All right. So I'm hoping you're seeing this now. Hemoglobin, hematocrit, RBCs, incompatible, the hematocrits and platelets and white blood cells is what I want you to know, the WBCs. 17.9, and it's high. Normally, let me show you the normal range. Forgetting that per microliter. This is off the charts. This is, like I said, the smoking gun. I'm hoping you can see it now. I'm going to test and check, make sure that this is visible. Okay, it's working. You can see that the, again, if I reduce it so you can see the normal range straight across the line of 4.5 to 11. And it's like 17.9. This is an indicator that your body has gone into, extreme, response of your immune system attacking something that does not belong in your blood. Your white blood cells to skyrocket this high is an indicator of the fact that you were given an incompatible blood transfusion. Don't let them lie about this. If any hematologist doesn't verify that, I'm telling them that that's exactly what that indicates. You need to investigate to see if they were either bribed or they're under coercion from the government to cover and or who knows, greedy attorneys, trying to, control costs for their, sick client, of hospitals that are profiting off illegal organ harvesting, doctors included. This is going on. It's already been busted in America before, and it's still going on now. Only they've gotten sneakier and it's gotten, more prolific, and they're more successful in covering up what they do. These are all indicators. This discharge lab report proves they gave me an incompatible blood transfusion. Now, they denied it. What they say is they call, I don't know if you can read that guy's writing, laryngeal spasm on extubation, and it's like the develop, hypoxia and so on, so pulmonary edema, post-obstructive, that's this guy's notes. This is, I think this is, Chestnut. Dr. Chestnut is a pulmonologist. This guy went to the Mayo Clinic. And here's Cruz's. They're all lying. Chestnut actually stopped practicing when I filed the lawsuit alleging attempted homicide, and was extremely difficult to track down. This guy knows. He knows that they did this to me on purpose. This pulmonologist man that went to the Mayo Clinic is not, so damn naive that, covering up and saying it was a rare thing. Like I said, the lab report proves they did this to me. But they're all saying it was this, negative pressure, edema, brought on by my, sleep apnea or whatever. And see, they're lying to cover up what they did to me. So we can get to the notes here, where you can actually read them. It's not just handwriting. Okay, here we go. This guy, here's Cruz's detail of what he did, the operation for, and so on and so forth. And then it's says why, he was doing the surgery and stuff. Obstructive sleep apnea, namely I had a broken nose when I was younger and I needed to get my, septum, corrected, straightened out, so I could breathe through my nose properly. Anyway, he goes into the details here of, how the surgery went, so on and so forth. And upon extubation, okay, they have me, again, all anesthetized, and they say that immediately upon extubation, the patient underwent laryngeal spasm followed by post-obstructive pulmonary edema. And the patient required reintubation, in other words, I lost air, and administered atropine and epinephrine. I had cardiac arrest. There was frothing of fluid in the indirect tracheal tube, confirming post-obstructive pulmonary edema. At that point, chest was called. And they, in other reports, acknowledged the cardiac arrest and, the hypoxia for, 5 minutes. They say it only happened one time. It happened twice. And then the reason why they denied a second time is because it proves that they absolutely were trying to kill me. At any rate, it happened twice. And the second time was horrible. They had me tied down on a gurney, had an intubation tube shoved down my throat, and, couple sick nurses right there. This one was laughing as I was suffocating to death when they shut the machine off on purpose and watched me, again go into cardiac arrest. They tried to kill me. And it's not, some psychological transference. It's actual memory of these sick individuals that are loose, that actually thought it was funny. Tried to kill me. And these people are loose. I'll take any polygraph. If I could only get an investigation, the woman that gave me the incompatible blood transfusion was innocent. She was just a young nurse, and if she would just come forward and tell what doctors told her to give me the transfusion, then it could be linked to, Cruz and Joy as it properly should be. Then the fact that they, also had a temp, white out my handwritten instructions on the transfusion permission form saying no incompatible blood transfusion, no O negative blood under any circumstances, O positive only, and only in an emergency. So they deny they gave me the transfusion. They claim it was like this rare, negative pressure, pulmonary edema, when really it was as a direct result of the fact that they had given me incompatible blood, and I went into an acute hemolytic reaction. All this stuff, man, they're just lying. They all agreed to lie to cover up what they did to me, and in just that is attempted homicide. To leave me with incompatible blood when I clearly had 2 heart attacks, or at least they acknowledge I had one, but I had 2. The reason they denied the second one is because there absolutely was attempted homicide. They intentionally had an intubation tube shoved down my throat. My hands and legs were tied on a gurney so I couldn't scream for help, and they shut the machine off on purpose, and one of them started laughing, and the other one said, "Acting like a wild man won't save you now." These people are sick. They're evil. I'm not making this up. These people need to be arrested. Smoke. Years and years and years ago, I tried a few cigarettes. Got sick and never smoked again. But they do whatever they can to, give you, as much, lack of credibility as possible. So they can hide under, the guise of other, ailments or suffering of what they actually really did. The fact that generally my organs were in good shape, I was in generally good health, and except for the fact I was so damn sick, and the whole reason I wanted into surgery in the first place was because my psychopath, ex was trying to murder me by poisoning me, and these doctors actually discovered it, and that's really what brought all this on. They actually decided for, $50,000 apiece to help her finish me off. But the fact is that even if you don't believe that, which again I've got urine and hair samples and that I saved, and plus my body surely has at least the chemicals of the poison she gave me, even if it's not the inactive ingredients. Chemicals and toxins stay in your body a long time. So I know that if I could get actually somebody to believe I was telling the friggin' truth, even though it's hard to believe that many people would try to kill you, but it's our society now. I mean, we've got an epidemic of people slaughtering their own babies and thinking that it's okay, to just, murder their own children. And then we got, people saying, we can't pay for health care. And then we got people saying, end of life, should be, cut short and stuff and this and that. Our society systematically, constantly is devaluing human life to the point where it's like, what do you expect? They can make, huge profits from harvesting your organs, man. And you think these people believe in God? They don't believe in God. They don't believe in heaven or hell. If they did, they wouldn't do these things. They just think that you came from a monkey and they see you as, just like the island, a source of making money, harvest your organs and friggin', clean up on the profits. At any rate, yeah, he goes into the details of exactly what he did to me, and then leaves out the fact that it caused cardiac arrest and so on and so forth, but it is in here. And I'll just make the whole record public. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I want these people locked up. I want them behind bars. I don't want them loose to do what they did to me to no one else. If I was a vengeful person, man, I would tie these fuckers down, excuse my language, but I would tie them down. Absolutely. And I would give them an incompatible blood transfusion and document the results so the rest of the world knows what happens when people do that to somebody. If I was a vengeful person. And as such, I just want these people, stopped in their tracks so they're not loose to murder other people and think that it's okay because they've got little letters after their name to lie about, how heinous they are as criminals. These people are criminals. Now, Chestnut, wasn't involved initially in the, conspiracy, but he obviously agreed to cover for him, because he lies in his report. This guy's a pulmonologist. He knows I was suffering from an incompatible blood transfusion. He knows that I had, classic, textbook case of acute hemolytic response that brought on the pulmonary edema and the heart attacks. They tried to kill me. I didn't die too easy, and mainly because of God, my faith. But nevertheless, the Lord left me in such incredible suffering. I was bedridden, literally, begging for help, man. Why I went through even more crimes after that. Corruption in law enforcement. I went to the police, and they did more crimes against me. And I know that makes me sound paranoid, but it's the truth. It's massive corruption, epidemic of evil. And they found out my ex was involved, and they blackmailed her for sex acts instead of arresting her. Then Nags and Layman, especially Nags, actually conspired with her to, on top of everything else she had done to me, attempted homicides by poisoning over a prolonged period of time, and by conspiracy with these doctors, and then betraying me to discredit me to get a whole other life-threatening situation. She then, actually, by screwing these corrupt cops, gets away with defrauding me out of, the better part of my estate. I call for the immediate arrest not only of the doctors involved and the police involved, but also, especially, unfortunately for me, I married a person that is, to put it in very succinct terms, an actual psychopath. She has no remorse for what she's done. She, cleverly plotted and to destroy my life and to discredit me when I went to police and to attorneys to try to get. She wouldn't help me. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Now I know. All along she was involved. The fact that she knows, she saw this, I showed it to her. She knows they gave me an incompatible blood transfusion. She knows I went through 2 heart attacks, and she did nothing to help me with law enforcement or hiring at least attorneys to sue them for malpractice while I was left bedridden in agony. And I couldn't work anymore, and I was making a good living. 6 figures a year. It wasn't the best in the world, but I was using that money to reinvest and capitalize on my earnings. she was so damn greedy she wanted the whole estate to herself. And she had, in arguments in the past, had told me she could get away with murdering me. She'd even told me that she had dated a male nurse in an emergency room, that a lot of people actually die from being poisoned by lovers or by spouses, and it's not told in the news because it's so easy. She poisoned me, and I've got the proof. I've got urine samples, I've got hair samples. If I could just get any honest or competent officials to believe, man, that, I mean, at least enough of what I'm showing to investigate, for crying out loud. It is really making me angry, man, that, I mean, I've been systematically threatened or laughed at or slandered or criticized or just like, oh, dude, you're mentally ill or this or that, when I'm telling the truth. I married a very greedy, a very cruel, a very unbelievably cruel person. I mean, she would poison me and then sit there and go, how are you feeling now, dear? And as I got sicker, I'd be like, God, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm bloating all the time. And she'd go, where'd you get that huge bruise from, dear? And I go, oh, gee, I don't know. I didn't hit anything. It's like, how come you're still bleeding, dear, from a tiny cut? Well, the blood thinners from the rat poison she was giving me. It's sick! Man, she is a psychopath! First of all, I know her brother knows. He tried to warn me. He came and visited one time when I was getting really ill and really sick, and he looked at my, yellowing eyes, and he knew. I know she's done this before. She needs to be put behind bars. She thinks that it's okay to poison people for money, for the life insurance or for their estate, and it is cruel. It's got to be one of the cruelest things you can do to kill somebody. I mean, a gun is much more humane. Poison is cruel. It attacks all the cells in your body, man. I mean, it causes unbelievable amounts of suffering. And doctors, I remember this guy, Dr. Carell, he thought that I know he thought now, because God revealed it to me, that he thought that we were somehow together, trying to build, life insurance companies or something, that it was like a plan for me to, die for her or something. Hell no! I didn't know what the hell was wrong with me. He kept asking me, well, are you depressed? I'm like, no, I'm not depressed, damn it, but I'm suffering, I'm hurting. And doctors kept, are you depressed? I'm like, no, I'm not. I kept all the time, because of the complete brainwashing of all the advertising commands, that these campaigns that they go on with, depression hurts, depression hurts, depression hurts. And so pretty soon, even doctors are believing it. So that's all they can think. They just think what they see on TV, just like everybody else. I'm not saying everybody, but people are so manipulated by propaganda, man. It's unbelievable. Patient was post-operatively. He had complications of post-op obstructive pulmonary edema, right? This pulmonary edema, this post-obstructive pulmonary edema actually was the acute hemolytic response from the incompatible blood they gave me that I've already showed you on the lab reports. They gave me prednisone, and they actually gave me this thing called Norco or something like that. Those are like typical, man, for steroids and for an incompatible blood transfusion to be given. That's what they gave me as the medications. Norco and prednisone. Steroid and a mild pain reliever. I want, and I'm requesting, and will sign waiver of liability from myself or any other person in my behalf, criminally and civilly. I'm willing to risk my life at this point to be given compatible blood. I want all of the blood in my body, completely replaced with O positive. O positive. Not O negative, not any other blood type. O positive. and preferably from as young a donor as possible, exposed to as least amount of allergens as possible, as healthy as possible, and absolutely no diseases, and so on and so forth. And if I die, well, it's better than living every day in the amount of agony that I am enduring. And frankly, I just don't believe that I'm going to. I believe that I'll recover if I could get the proper treatment. But if I do, if I actually suffer another incompatible, or another hemolytic response that's acute, and I suffocate to death, I want it clearly understood. Let me put the camera back on me about this. I'm trying to create a living will here publicly. Because I lost all my money, I can't afford attorney's fees. Alright, I want this clearly understood. I am seeking to be given transfusion therapy, compatible transfusion therapy with the blood type I was born with, which is O positive, not O negative. O negative can kill me. I'm suffering horribly from it. I know that my immune system is attacking myself because I intentionally gave myself a bunch after I was suffering, for an extended period of time in my digestive system, which felt like rocks because of the 5 minutes and 3 minutes of hypoxia from the cardiac arrest. My entire digestive system had to be restarted again. I couldn't believe how much pain just in my intestines I suffered from as a result of this. But it's like I had to give myself a bunch of probiotics. And when I did so, when I flooded my body with probiotics to try to help my ability to digest food again, my immune system responded initially, and it caused an incredible amount of pain relief for about 16 to 18 hours. And after 24 hours, it started to get worse again. And after 48 hours, I was pretty much back in the state of intense chronic pain every waking moment that I've been in. Sometimes it is intolerable. Sometimes it's so great that it makes me, I'm not trying to exaggerate here. I'm just trying, because nobody can feel unless they have a special divine gift of true, empathy, a complete, empath that can actually experience, what suffering you're in, So I just have to tell you, I know what intense pain is. My hand has been in, high temperature vats of oil and stuff in restaurants. I've been in 500-degree ovens and picked cast iron skillets up where it just left nothing but blisters, man, all over my skin. I've been burned many times. I grew up in restaurants, man. I've been chemically burned by the degreasers and all the lye and so on and so forth that they use in the restaurants and stuff. I've suffered intense physical pain. Breaks, dislocations, stabs, cuts, numerous times, man, numerous times, even shot in the head. And severe back injury left me in 4 years of rehab, man. To talk about fusing my spine, I was walking like a cripple, all hunched over for, an extended period of time. In fact, I couldn't walk for an extended period of time. I was completely screaming, for pain on that one. But I know what pain is, and there's times that this is so painful and it makes you almost want to literally rip your hair out just to try to distract your brain from feeling the pain throughout your entire body, even in your bones. This is excruciating, man. And most days I've gotten to a point where I'm just so used to waking up in intense pain every day now that I can just deal. But there's times, man, when I can't deal. And I sit there and I cry to God. And why won't He heal me? I've watched Him heal so many people. I've seen so many miracles in my lifetime. I know that beyond all doubt, for me, it's not a faith thing. I have 100% knowledge. I know that Christ, was crucified. I know that His stripes heal. It's not like, I have to struggle to believe that. I'm intellectually, completely 100% convinced of the historical facts of these things. And experientially, now, I know this when people might think that I'm nuts, but I've seen the risen Lord. So I know, and beyond all doubt, nobody can tell me otherwise, that Christ is the Lord, that He is still reigning, that He will return, and that everything in the scriptures are going to come to pass exactly as he says so, and I'm going to explain and prove. People think, okay, I don't even want to listen to this guy anymore because he said this. But if you do, I'm going to prove it to you. This is something you're going to want to see. If anything, just for all you arrogant ones that think that there's no way this could be true, just so you can laugh it up with your friends. All right? You're going to want to follow me now. I've showed you the medical lab report that proves they gave me an incompatible blood transfusion. I've stated plainly that I'm willing to sign any waiver of liability, any type of indemnification agreement that you and a whole army of attorneys can come up with if I can just get O-positive blood to be completely given me throughout my whole body, replacing the blood that is in my body right now, completely. Now, I don't care if it takes, a number of treatments. I don't care if I would like to actually to be anesthetized, because if I do suffer an acute hemolytic response again, if I do suffer another heart attack, I want it understood that I am issuing a do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate me. Let me go on. I've already seen paradise numerous times. I know where I'm going. I know paradise is so much better than this world, than anything this world has to offer, that there's no reason why I would want to hesitate about moving on. The only thing actually that keeps me from, wanting to just even, I have a desire, just like Paul said, to move on. But we're here to do our duties. We're here to do what God sent us to do. I have a lot of knowledge from the Almighty. I mean, I was given, let's just call it a data dump. I prayed, for these times, and God gave it to me. I've got this heavy, sense of responsibility and duty to share what the Lord has showed me, what would help the nations of the world at this time, all of them. And I'm going to share as much as I can without taking too much of your time. And at the same time, I want to convince people that I do know enough straight from God that you're going to at least pray for me, if not encourage, man, that they give me this medical treatment. I know medically speaking, this is what I need. Spiritually speaking, I should already have obtained the miracle from Christ because he already earned it for me, and I've stood on it. But in my physical body, it has not yet been manifest. What I'm experiencing physically is horrible. It is horrible. Now, I don't want people thinking, okay, let's kill this guy to put him out of his misery. I want the chance to survive, to recover. And it's not just for myself and my own selfish desires. It's that I do have volumes of information, thousands of inventions, and things that don't exist. The Lord let me see in eternity. I mean, things from anything that I'll go into the list of the major ones that are going to help the most people. But I'm going to stop it now, and I'm going to start from my outline so I don't jump off on tangents, because I'm going to be very systematic about my proofs.